games up, 3-1 in the conference in the playoffs right now.
Is that like the World Series? But it's only limited to the US.
To listen to you on the debate, Daniel, fix the strings of your hoodie.
Way, here we go. I think we're working
Daniel,
now,
noise
guys.
off center.
Roll in the intro. Hey, you've got Daryl as a service for Regarding 365. We are at the next, or episode 2 of the Regarding 365 debate, discussion, chat. Yeah, you know what I mean. We've got a discussion. What's the topic today? The topic is, are intranets still relevant? Now, this seemed to be quite an interesting poke the bear experience as we chatted this on the internet. Maybe relevant was not the right word, but we're certainly going to have a blast as we go. Now, we're going to do a quick intro from each of the teams. So we have got 6 people, not 8 this time. You remember last time we were at the lovely Microsoft Studios where I could just look to the left and go, these people and those people, and now we've got a whole bunch of squares all over the screen. Only 4 are displaying, and we are using Microsoft Teams to power this. So let's start by introing with Sarah and go through your team.
All right, I can introduce myself. My name's Sarah Hazy. I am an Office Servers and Services MVP corporate librarian. Excited to talk about intranets and where our content is going.
Thanks, Sarah. And Tracy?
Hi there. So Tracy van der Schuyf from all the way from South Africa, Microsoft's biggest fan, and absolutely excited to be here today and hear what everyone's got to say about intranets and whether they're still relevant.
All right. And Liz?
Hi, I'm Liz Sunded, and I'm also a Office Servers and Services MVP from Minnesota, just down the road from Sarah, and it's a bright and sunny day here today, but we got snow yesterday. So I am very, very interested in talking about intranets and spent most of my career doing intranet type of work. So should be interesting.
All right. Sebastian?
Hey guys, Sebastian Levert here, directly from sunny and very hot Montreal, -2 degrees today. Finally, we have no snow anymore, so we're kind of happy. Happy today to talk about intranets, and that's kind of what I do days in and days out. And I'd like to give you kind of a take on how you don't need an intranet.
Okay, thanks, Seb. And Dan?
Wow. Hello, everyone. Daniel Glenn here from the sunny Nashville. I love intranets, so I guess you're going to know where I'm coming from in this debate, but I really look forward to engaging with everyone. I am also let's just call it a SharePoint MVP, but all the Office 365 stuff. And I am really looking forward to this conversation. So.
Cool. And lastly, Alistair.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Alistair Gerard Pugin. I am the official content services ninja. I bring you powers that is all about ideation and things that start from a chat.
Gerard. Alistair Gerard. How about that? So we've all learned something new. If you don't come away with some good opinions about the intranet, we now know Alistair's middle name. That's awesome. All right, so just going over the rules quickly before we dive into it. So the topic is, are intranets still relevant? We're going to talk about it from a yes perspective and a no perspective. We have mixed things up, as you've heard. Some people are very pro-intranet, but they've kindly taken the opposite side of the argument to try and get us to think about stuff. And this is the point really about these debates and discussions, is we're already talking about this in our organizations across the community, and it's really good to be able to talk about this in one place and get a whole lot of thoughts together. So we're going to alternate. First of all, the teams are going to have 3 minutes to talk. Each person will have a chance to talk and not get talked over the top of each other as they lay out their thoughts about whether the intranets are relevant or not. And then we'll open up with some freestyle interjections where people will call out their name and then I'll direct them and go, and yes, Seb, you've got something to say. Because that's how we're going to do it without talking over the top of each other. He's got nothing to say. All right, so we're starting off with the yes side of things. Are intranets still relevant? And beginning with Sarah.
All right, coming off of mute. So I'm going to kick us off on the yes side. I'm going to say that the business need of intranets, if we go back to the classical definition, is our employees need to be able to learn. They need to be able to get at content that's relevant to them in their daily jobs. They need to get at policy information. They need to get at common procedures, shared information needs, but they also need to be able to engage with their coworkers in an effective way. So the more traditional view of the internet, right, as a location or as a destination where you have curated content that is heavily managed, probably by corporate communications or by some centralized entity in the company, and tends to be one way and tends to be content that is slowly changed over time with more well-curated content. I think that construct of an intranet is what's changing. And suddenly we have a variety of tool sets in Office 365 that can help to meet that need. So I think the concept of an intranet is still very relevant. The business need by the users is still there, but those users' level of expectations about tooling, the tools themselves, maturity of the tools, and the ability for them to actually be dynamic in terms of being able to tag content, being able to go back and provide comments on the content, being able to engage others and share that content has gone up over the years. So definitely still needed, but it can't be static. It can't be so slow. It needs to be more agile, more lean, and be able to be representative of the user's features. Daniel, what are you doing? Tyler, he's taken my 3 minutes, Daryl, right out of the gate. All right. So a multiplicity of tools might need to be our winning approach. I think that's going to be a common theme in the debate today. So whether we're looking at outsites from a SharePoint perspective, we're looking at integration with Teams, we're looking at enterprise social tools like Yammer, being able to integrate those, yes to intranets, but we have to change our scope on what an intranet is to be more inclusive and dynamic.
All right, yeah, thank you, Sarah, and I'm glad that you opened up with defining or starting to define what an intranet is, because really that is part of the question. If we're going to talk about relevancy, like a number of people rebutted with me on Twitter, it's all about, well, what is an intranet? And, think about where it started. It was, an internal internet, so to speak, and sometimes a very static HTML page, and it's come a long way. So thanks for your comments there, Sarah, and, feel free, for those of you who are in the chat, there's a ton of talk going on in there, a lot of hellos and everything, but do feel free to jump in and make some suggestions too about what you think an intranet is and your thoughts. Right, so flicking over now to Tracy on the no team. Intranets are not still relevant?
Well, thanks to Sarah and to Daryl, which has covered like 15 of my 16 points, because it sounded like you were saying no, Sarah, just for interest's sake. I think I want to open this up. So as we said, some of us are actually against the intranets, and that's all part of investigating both sides. But I actually want to ask the questions of whether fax machines are still relevant. And the reason why I ask that is because if you ask if something's still relevant, I think we need to take a step back and say what the purpose was of fax machines. And fax machines were there to send messages and to reach out to people. And do we still do that today? Of course we do, but do we still use fax machines? No, we don't. So that kind of bases why, and it's a different way of looking at both sides, I suppose, but it's about thinking about that and taking a step back and saying, what is the purpose of an intranet, just like Sarah said as well, and making sure that we're still covering the basics. And if I look at what the purpose is of an intranet, so firstly, it used to be a place where we go to find stuff, okay? Or like we pretended that was the place where we went to find stuff. Well, no. That's what management said, where we went to go and find stuff. So for years I said that intranets are failing because we're building it for the people who pay for them and not for the people who use them. Big mistake we've made all along. It's always been a problem. So that completely put intranets out of the relevance because we were building it for the wrong people. Now, if we look at that, if it's supposed to be a place where we go and find stuff, Okay, maybe it's a compliance center. Maybe it's all about policies and procedures and documents. I come from compliance background, so for me, we need to have those things. It's not just a communication place or a soapbox, but we need a place where we can have compliance type of documents, etc. Is it an induction portal? Is it a place where people can find things out about the company? Is it a soapbox for communication? So even if I think Sarah, mentioned the go-to for training and stuff. So if I think training material, now if I start mentioning all of these things, so even to get to know people, and I look at all of those things and I make a list of what intranets are supposed to be, then a lot of those I'm ticking off with the tools that we already have these days. So you want to get to know people? Use the Who bot and Teams. I mean, how amazing is that little bot, okay? Training material. We shouldn't be hosting internal training material anymore. I mean, everything's out there for Office 365. We shouldn't be creating our own stuff. So for me, it's not about saying intranets isn't relevant anymore. I'm saying the method or the model we had is outdated. I mean, that's definitely, and in that sense, I think Sarah and I are talking the same thing. The traditional intranets is gone. It's dead. That's the problem. It needs a facelift, and we need to understand, because also when it comes to content, is that we used to build intranets and expect people to navigate there. It never happened. Again, people used to do presentations at conferences and say, it's beautiful, we won an award. No one used it, okay? Let's not lie to each other. It's about building something that comes to you. That's how technology has changed. If intranets can come to us and bring to us what we need, then it'll work. I have no idea where I am on 3 minutes, but go for it.
You are at 4 minutes and 50 seconds. No, I'm not keeping a timer, but it's like I just wanted to jump in there and go 10 seconds. No, she's on a roll. There are some interesting points, but thank you for that. And it's definitely important to look at that sort of thought of why are we building them? Who is our audience? We have got some interesting discussion here in the chat room too. That having an intranet page load up in the browser as your first starting point. How do you flick through that? Do you change your homepage? Steve Nguyen says, yeah, it's kind of useful, but only go there for a few things. So definitely some good discussion going on there. Hey, and the next person we've got to discuss the yes side of things is Liz. Liz, chime on in. Wonder if we still have Liz.
I think Liz is muted, maybe.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? It still happens in Teams. It always happens in Skype.
Awesome.
There you go.
Yes, you have to unmute before you can talk. So I've spent most of my career doing intranets and doing, beautiful portal type of presentations and working a lot with not only the people who are paying for it, such as the C-level suites, but working with end users on exactly where to go to find the information that they're looking for. And while I agree that the landscape is going to be changing somewhat in the future, remember that we are on the cutting edge of that. Not all businesses have gone to the quite modernization as we are in right now. A lot of them are still on 2013 platforms. They're still on on-premises platforms. They can't take advantage of Teams and hub sites and all of these other cool features that we have rolling out from Microsoft day after day. They still need someplace to go. They need still someplace to put their information to be able to capture and garner that information to their worldwide audience. And if you think about where intranets, the majority of the intranets came from, it came from a corporate bulletin board that was, as you walked in the office space, it was a place to go to for announcements or things for sale or information, finding out about benefits, all of those types of things. I think that having an intranet has increased the productivity of end users and being able to find things and being able to have things such as that's not on a corporate bulletin board, because people are working remotely. People are working in different offices. They don't get to see each other all the time. So we have to have some type of technology to fill that gap. And without it, where else are you going to put it?
Yeah, exactly. The question of where do I put it? Where do I go to find stuff? If you're joining a new organization and you're new on the block, it's often the question of how do we ramp up? How do we find things? Where are policies and stuff? So you're really good points there, Liz. We do still need a place to centrally put these things. Or do we? So we'll have a talk next to Seb, who's going to argue the no intranets are not still relevant. Interesting. Let's tune in.
Absolutely. So actually very interesting stuff by Liz right there. Centrally put your stuff and forget about it. You just put it there and you hope someone at some point will go and will figure out stuff. And this is not what an intranet is about. I don't think an intranet is relevant if you think that dropping documents, building 3 or 4 pages are enough to digitally transform your organization. This is not what it's all about. An intranet is a living piece in your organization. It is distributed, it is everywhere, but an intranet per se is not something. It's a set of different components, and I don't think intranet as a platform is something. It's something that is a lot bigger than in all of that. I'm always thinking about that newsletter that's being sent out like Friday at noon so everyone can laugh in the office. Yeah, that's a thing of the past. That's you want to have it every day through the channel you want to use. Is it email? Is it something else? Is it a team? Is it a connector in 365? Is it anywhere? You want to leverage the content based on your usage, based on your scenario, but not based on a single intranet platform. So that's why I think no, intranets as a platform, as a single repository is absolutely a no.
Well, definitely interesting there, and returning to that definition of what is an intranet, of course, it's not just a platform, is it? It is a collection of tools and not just a web page or a website. So, yeah, and definitely that point too of it's not just a dumping ground, but you have to make this content easy to find, easy to engage with, discuss, and talk about. Maybe that's where you start using tools like Yammer and embedded discussion points. There. And if we just flick over quickly to the chat room there, we do have a discussion about whether Yammer is still relevant. I guess this is where it does come in there, being able to discuss the content. At the moment we do need to find a third-party tool that does help to discuss content and keep it rich, because it's discussion that actually draws us to it. So a lot of good chat going on there, and do tune in later on. YouTube has added a great replay feature that I promise I won't break this time by trimming the ends of our video.
Is it my turn yet?
Oh, it is your turn, Dan. Yeah,
okay,
interjecting
great.
on the host. Cheers, dude. So Dan, go ahead.
Thank you, everyone. I've been taking notes, so some good stuff, including fax machines. So I'll get to it. So I think intranets, we've been kind of going around this whole deal about defining it, and I think that is exactly right. You need to define it, and so I'm going to define it for you. Everybody write this down, because here's the definition of an intranet. An intranet is the one place that you can go as an employee to learn about your company, to learn about those announcements, to get to find those for integration points for all those apps that you use, and a launching point for you to do all your work. So that's my definition of an intranet. So does it need to be, are we talking tool specific here? No. However, I think there are tools that people are throwing out there as a intranet kind of tool or a method of having an intranet that I think are wrong. So employee engagement, integration to those other tools that you're having, about, let's talk about all the tools we have in Office 365. There's too many of them to keep track of. How do we focus on what we need to get to and launch? And so I think, the intranet plays a role there. And then leveraging the content that is being created. So talking about those news boards, those emails that we're getting, all of that together really is pointing toward, I need one place to see my news, to see my events that are going on, to have application links that we're going to, that we need to go to. And so that our employees are our employees. They're not IT workers. They're not HR workers solely. They're not accounting people solely. They're our employees. So they all know about what's going on within the organization. That's an intranet. The fax machine, I think Tracy was right. We don't use the fax machine. Oh, well, actually, I do have a client that does. But anyway, but we still do what the fax machine did. So no, we're not going to have this HTML crappy intranet anymore. It needs to be dynamic. It needs to be something that a facelift is what was mentioned earlier. Yes, it needs a facelift, but that doesn't mean we throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't say, oh, we don't need an intranet. We're done with intranet. Just use this tool if you want to. Use this other tool if you want to. Well, if I'm using a totally different tool than you, how do I get that information and those integration points? I think that SharePoint is a fantastic tool, and that's what I implement intranets all the time, that has integration points to all those other tools. And people might say, oh, Teams is an intranet tool. No, it's not an intranet tool. You can't do those things that I mentioned earlier in Teams effectively. And that's why we have things like integration points with, let's bring in our SharePoint page into Teams. Well, that's your intranet, not Teams. So that's my viewpoint, and I'm 10 seconds over. Sorry.
And Dan was running a stopwatch, I'm sure. Can we see your whiteboard, dude? Hold it up. How about that? My
whiteboard. So there's fax machine, employee engagement.
Yeah, I thought so.
Facelift. Yeah.
I want a picture on the internet. Hashtag #365 for that. Thanks. We all need whiteboards. Way. Yeah, great points there, Dan. And I think one thing I picked up there too is that there is overlap, right? So it isn't just one tool. An intranet is a collection of tools. You can't just say one tool replaces it all, which sometimes when it's marketing people getting involved and a bit kind of bossy and enthusiastic about the new product on the block, it's, yes, use this all the time when it's really got to be a combination. I like seeing the story in Microsoft now is the better together and the combo of tools. So yeah, let's keep talking about this. Let's finish off with Al and his discussion on no, intranets are not still relevant.
So Daryl, thank you for that. Thank you for crossing over to the Regarding 365 studios in sunny South Africa. We really appreciate the time. And I take it everyone can hear me. Talk, talk, talk.
We can, but you might have to restart your camera. This is a Teams thing too, by the way, people. It isn't perfect. Yeah.
You're joking, right?
No, restart the cam.
Hold
on. You're still using up your 3 minutes.
It's fine. I know Daryl, Daniel. Is that the right one?
There he is. There he's
Am
gone.
I back? Am I back?
Now you're back.
Am I back? All right.
You're back.
Quickly through it. Dan's got a very big marker. I've got a bigger whiteboard. That's the first thing. So, and also we need to talk about rebuttal. So from a rebuttal perspective, no one challenged anyone. So I'm here to challenge her. That's what I do. I'm the challenger. I'm the rebuttal master. So let's go through the list. Yes, the phantom intranet is a definite thing. Thank you, Tracy. 1 point to Team No. All right. Sarah mixed up Yammer, which is an ESN, and Teams is a chat-based information management system. Point to the No team. Dan came and talked about intranets like it was actually something. No. You can't do that, Dan. That's just a waste of everyone's time. So let's work through what enterprise content management and the greater knowledge management conversation is, right? Because no one's talked about the science behind this. So for me, you give a kid Facebook and you give a kid SharePoint, they're going to work on Facebook. Why? Because Facebook is about ideation management. So from my perspective, when you're using tools, that's where you're working. It's about chat-based information management. We never start with writing the document straight off the top. No. What do? We start about having a conversation. Hi, I have this idea to have a show called Debates About Are Intranets Still Valid? Nobody created a document. Nobody uploaded the document to a document repository, which is like a fax machine today. And nobody worried about trying to find it. Because, sorry, Liz, search is not an intranet. All right, let's get that out the way. Otherwise, we just use Google for everything. So my point is still define what an intranet is, because no one's accurately done it. When we talk intranet, we forgot to add the suffix, which is portal, because that's how people see portals. They go there for their cafeteria menus. That's the only way you keep the ghost away from the intranet. So from my perspective, it's dead. You give someone Yammer versus SharePoint, they're going to use Yammer. Why? Because it's easy to use. My mother did not learn how to use Facebook. I will have to teach her how to use SharePoint. The end.
Nice roundup there. Hey, did anyone... Oh, look, okay, so we are going to get into the rebuttal side of things. Dan's waving.
Daniel.
Yes, go Dan.
I agree that if you don't do SharePoint well, you're going to have to train well. But that's with any tool. But there are times when you're like, okay, we want it to be intuitive and all that. Yes, I agree. But that doesn't mean you throw out the baby with the bathwater. SharePoint or any other kind of internet tool is great, but you can build upon that. You can do cool stuff without just keeping what's out of the box. So having to train your mother, that's fantastic for you. But I can give you an intranet tool, a SharePoint-based intranet that is intuitive, looks great, that is modern looking, and I can do it in a fraction of what a traditional intranet project used to be. And this is where we live in these days. And just because you have to do a little training, that doesn't mean it's irrelevant or invalid.
And he drops the mic. Don't drop the mic though. Woohoo! We do have some interesting chatter there going on too. Still, just before we cut over to Seb, they're still trying to define the intranet in the chat room. They're going to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, you know. Okay, Seb, where you go?
I actually agree with the last point of Daniel, but I'd like to bring out something interesting here. Is today we're in the kind of a consumerization of the IT, and you want to be able to leverage any tool without so much training. So I think what is even better than a training, and I think user adoption should come as a part of a intranet or digital workplace or whatever you call it. It has to be part of that. People need to understand that it's not just a magical tool you put in and it works. When I say I don't think intranets are relevant, intranets are being pushed out from a top-down type of strategy where communication needs to stop sending emails, so they build an intranet and then they use the news engine to send information to everyone. Well, nobody goes to the intranet. Continue using the email. At least people may read their emails. In our case, that's not it. So training, simplicity, user adoption in context help or in context training is an awesome way also to be able to kind of engage with the users and simplify their experience. And I really think that it's not only important, it's mandatory in those kind of projects.
All right, we have Liz rebounding.
Hi. So I spent probably good portion of my time even today on Google and Binging things that I was doing some research on. I don't see why that is necessarily a bad thing, especially when it comes to looking for corporate information that we may not know exactly where it is or to be able to find the resources for it, but I might find a group chat around something. I might find an actual document. I might find several different resources that I can then go in and search. So I disagree with you, Al. I have to say that, hey, the search is working. It's a great tool and a great resource to be able to find information and still be productive.
Al, do you have an answer to that?
I do. I'm just flipping through cameras because my camera, there we go. There, now you can see my hands. All right. So I don't necessarily agree with Seb, even though he's on my team. So yeah, there's a few things that we need to consider. Dan talks about going on about, oh no, I can spin up things. And the only reason why he can spin up things so fast is because Valor's actually written a deployment script that will build out everything for him. So still the same thing. I will stick my heels in and no. You start a conversation with a conversation. Your ideation process starts there. Gone are the days. Gone are the days that we have to worry about. I called it information methane and content black holes. Gartner has tossed out ECM. Ergo, intranets don't exist. All right. Microsoft has tossed out ECM. Microsoft says content services. And
Daniel.
Why does he interrupt me? Is he not supposed to lift his hand up? I don't understand this.
You have 10
It's the
seconds and
third
then we'll
time
flick
now.
over to Daniel.
Okay, I'm done.
He's done.
So
Daniel.
intranets don't exist? What kind of how do you where do you Okay.
Gartner.
So
Gartner,
intranets
don't believe
do
me. Go listen to
exist,
Gartner.
and it's that if you base it on that definition of the place that employees go to get information about, and it's the one place. It can't be across a bunch of different places. It's one place. We want one place for the place for truth. And so that's why we're using document management. That's why we don't email documents anymore. We want one place for the truth, and that is the intranet. And it has to be the place. You have to have an intranet. How do you disseminate information if you don't? It's email, and we're tired of that. So you have to have the intranet.
I heard Tracy yell at her name. I think. Did someone hear Tracy?
No.
I did. Tracy has something to say. I think.
Every 1 minute I'm changing my mind because of these oaks and their comments. I'm going like, yeah, no, yes, no. I again want to go back to maybe we're looking at the wrong thing, because my biggest problems with intranets is ownership. We're selling this pie in the sky thing of, oh, this is the perfect thing and everyone uses it and it saves cultures and stuff. It's not working. I mean, something there is not working. We don't have ownership. People aren't updating things. There isn't a culture to keep on updating it. Intranets just work the first month when it's a hype, and then it's over it. I mean, that's a problem for me.
Sorry, what was that, Sarah?
That's I'm coming off mute to try and get your attention. I think we're talking a lot about information needs, and if we need one version of the truth, if we need enterprise content management, we need two-way conversations or multi-way conversations, because it's not just two people, but we need free-form communications between employees. I still think that we need to go back and look at what is the information need, what are the personas of the people that we have that we're working with, and from a corporate communications or an information dissemination perspective, what do we need? What are the personas and the use cases that we're trying to solve? And I don't think we've touched on that yet in this debate, right? So there is a place for training or cafeteria menus, top-down, one-way static communications. I think that there's a persona or a use case for that. There's also a use case for multi-way communications for people to be able to provide rich feedback about the quarterly earnings call that just happened, and for people to be able to have a place to have a dialogue about that, right? Or to be able to have a dialogue about the all-company meeting that just happened last week, or ideas for the future all-company meeting. So I think we need to go back and look at it from a use case information perspective. What do we need? And then looking at what are the best tools to be able to support that need, rather than looking at it from a tools perspective first. Because even with all the smart people that we have in this debate, we keep on going back to the tools and using big words like enterprise content management. And most of the users don't care about such things.
Alistair.
And Alistair, and then we've got time for one more person after that.
All right. So when you want to find stuff, you go to your intranet, right? And they give you a list of gobbledygook and a smorgasbord of rubbish, when all you really want to do is use a search bar like you do with Google to find stuff. Okay, there we go. Do we care about what's on the back where we store content? No, because we don't. If you're using, how many Slack users are there worldwide versus how many intranet users? And then go measure the ramp up to Slack. And I'm sorry, Sarah, with an H, that I'm actually referring to another product and not a technology like enterprise content management.
But we're getting the H in there.
Yeah, all right. I just don't have the swagger that Dan has when he says it. So, no.
Daniel.
Why does he interrupt all the time? Every time I speak.
You're burning time, Al. Keep going, quick. 20 seconds.
So, okay, in closing, intranets are dead. Use Google.
Internet. Okay. So Dan, are you finished?
Okay, got it. Yeah. So who cares how many Slack users there are? Nobody. Only Slack.
Alistair.
And we don't care about these tools. We care about getting the information to our users and having them a place for them to launch into just getting their work done. If I'm in Teams all day long and I'm collaborating with my team. That's fantastic. But how do I know about the company news? How do I know about company events? I don't, unless I get an email. And so and one thing I put in the chat, intranet does not equal SharePoint. SharePoint does not equal intranet. Okay. But an intranet is the place you go to get the information. So I'm not tying it to a tool. I'm tying it to the place that everybody knows they can go to get that information, but then a launching point to other tools, whether that's in Microsoft or any other software maker or anything else. That's the place that we can go to have one identity, to be able to acknowledge that we are employees, get that information, and then move on. So that, the collaboration and all that kind of stuff, that's fantastic. But, but it does not equal SharePoint, and I'm not tying it to a tool, and I don't think anybody should either. But I think SharePoint is a great tool to use for an intranet. But
don't jump sides now. This is not where you get to move from one party to the other one.
I am so for the intranets, and that's we have to have an intranet.
However, I think that this discussion has actually really highlighted the point. Tracy said it herself, that we do flip and flop between, yes, I'm pro, yes, I'm not. Intranets, sometimes they're a bit weak. Actually, no, they are okay if you combine them with these tools. We've heard a real mixture of discussions, and definitely in the chat room, it has been pretty wild. Not too bad compared to, well, it's our second episode, so, what have we got to compare it to? It's been definitely awesome discussing these topics with you, and thank you everyone on the panel for joining, discussing whether intranets are still relevant. Of course they are, but it depends. Isn't that always the final answer? And make sure that you're serving this content up to the right audience. Serve your audience. And make sure that you're facilitating good discussion, a good place to find the content. And what's this T? What is this T? Al?
Teams for the win.
Big teams, little teams.
Tools.
Teams is not for the win. Teams is a fantastic tool, but it doesn't win.
No.
Because you don't know how to use it.
Oh my god.
Because you lock up and freeze, Al.
And with that, we'll roll out.
Awesomeness.
With that, we'll roll out. Thanks everyone for tuning in. That's Regarding 365. Continue the discussion on Twitter if you want.
Cool,
that's
hashtag
#365. Catch the replay. Tune into our other live bits and pieces. See you again soon. Bye for now.
Cheers, guys.